The smell of burning flesh is something you never forget. It's sweet and acrid at the same time, like caramelized meat mixed with singed hair. That smell filled our living room as I looked down at the perfect triangular burn mark on my forearm, still smoking, the iron steam setting having made it worse. My sister Celine stood there holding the iron like a weapon, her face twisted with satisfaction. We'd been arguing about her taking my laptop without permission, again, when she grabbed the iron from the board where I'd been pressing my work uniform. That's what trash gets for existing, my mother laughed from the doorway, wine glass in hand at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Maybe now you'll learn to keep your mouth shut. My father, watching from his recliner, didn't even look up from his phone. If I were her, I'd have burned your face too. At least then you'd have an excuse for being so ugly. I didn't cry, not one tear. I just stood there, feeling my skin bubble and blister, watching my family's faces, waiting for someone, anyone, to show concern, to call an ambulance, to act like I was a human being who'd just been assaulted with a 400-degree weapon. Instead, Celine set the iron back on the board and laughed. Look, she's too stupid to even react. Maybe I damaged her brain. Can't damage what doesn't exist, Mom added, taking another sip of her Chardonnay. I was 17 years old, 2 weeks from graduation, and I'd just received my acceptance letter to Stanford that morning. They didn't know about Stanford. They didn't know about a lot of things. I need to bandage this, I said quietly, my voice eerily calm. Drama queen, Celine rolled her eyes. It's barely a mark. I walked to the bathroom, locked the door, and examined the wound. 2nd-degree burn, easily. The pattern of the iron steam holes was perfectly visible in my flesh. I took photos from every angle, then carefully cleaned and dressed it with the first aid supplies I'd learned to keep hidden under the sink. Then I sat on the bathroom floor and planned their destruction. You see, what my family didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything for 3 years. Every bruise, every cruel word, every incident. What they also didn't know was that I'd been accepted to Stanford on a full scholarship, that I'd been working as a freelance programmer since I was 14, and that I had $47,000 saved in an account they knew nothing about. But most importantly, what they didn't know was that I discovered something about our family that would destroy everything they built their superiority complex on. I went to my room and pulled out the box hidden behind my dresser. Inside were documents I found in my grandmother's attic before she died, documents my parents thought had been destroyed in a fire years ago. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, immigration papers, and one very interesting adoption certificate with my name on it. I wasn't their biological daughter. I'd been adopted when I was 2, after my biological parents, my father's brother and his wife, died in a car accident. They'd taken me in for the insurance money and the monthly Social Security benefits. $2,400 a month for 15 years. That's $432,000 they collected while calling me trash, worthless, a burden. But here's the kicker. My biological parents had been wealthy, very wealthy, and they'd set up a trust for me that my adoptive parents had been stealing from for years, telling the lawyers I was mentally incompetent and needed them to manage it. The trust was supposed to transfer to me fully at 18, just 2 weeks away. It was worth $3.2 million, or it had been, before they drained nearly half of it. I pulled up the email I'd been drafting to the law firm that managed the trust, attached the documentation of abuse, the photos of injuries spanning 3 years, and today's fresh burn. Then I added screenshots of text messages where my parents discussed using the retard's money for Celine's college and their new house. But I didn't send it, not yet. First, I had preparations to make. That evening at dinner, I sat quietly while they laughed about the burn. Show everyone your new tattoo, Celine said, grabbing my bandaged arm and squeezing the burn. I didn't flinch, even though the pain was excruciating. Leave her alone, Dad said, and for a moment I thought, but no, she's depressing to look at. Ruins my appetite. I excused myself and went to my room, where I spent the night backing up every piece of evidence to 3 different cloud services and a physical drive I'd hide at school. Then I did something else. I hacked into Celine's social media accounts. Not to post anything, just to download her messages. The ones where she bragged about bullying me, where she shared photos of my injuries with her friends, laughing about them, where she admitted to stealing from my room and selling my things. My mother's computer was even easier. She used password 123 for everything. I found emails between her and my aunt discussing how they'd hidden my biological parents' will, how they convinced the lawyers I was mentally disabled, how they planned to drain the trust completely before I turned 18. My father's phone backup to the family computer yielded the most damaging evidence. He'd been embezzling from his company for years, using the money he stole from my trust to cover his tracks. He'd also been having an affair with his secretary, using my trust fund money to pay for her apartment. I screenshot everything. Every crime, every admission, every piece of evidence. The next day at school, I showed the burn to the nurse. She was horrified. "How did this happen?" she asked, documenting it with photos. My sister pressed an iron to my arm during an argument. My parents watched and laughed. She called the police immediately, then CPS, then the principal. By lunch, I was sitting in the principal's office with 2 police officers, a social worker, and a detective who specialized in child abuse cases. "I want to press charges," I said calmly, "and I have evidence of years of abuse as well as financial fraud." I handed over a USB drive with everything, organized into folders by date, by type of abuse, by perpetrator. The detective's eyes widened as she scrolled through it. "This is extensive," she said. "How long have you been documenting this?" 3 years, since I was 14 and realized no one would believe me without proof. But the financial fraud goes back 15 years. That afternoon, while I was still at school, the police arrested my sister at her community college for assault with a deadly weapon. My parents were arrested at their workplaces, my mother for child abuse and my father for child abuse and embezzlement once the police contacted his company with the evidence I provided. The social worker placed me in emergency foster care, but I showed her my Stanford acceptance letter and my bank statements. "I turn 18 in 2 weeks," I said. "I can take care of myself until then." She agreed to let me stay with my friend Jamie's family, who'd always suspected something was wrong at my house. That evening, the story hit the local news. Local honor student suffers years of abuse, parents and sister arrested. The iron burn was the lead image, brutal and undeniable. But I wasn't done. I contacted the law firm managing my trust with all the evidence. They immediately froze what was left of it and began criminal proceedings to recover what had been stolen. I also contacted my father's company with the evidence of his embezzlement. They found over $800,000 missing, traced directly to him. My biological parents' will, which my adoptive parents had hidden, revealed more. There was a house in my biological parents' names, rental properties, investment accounts, all being managed by a trustee who turned out to be my adoptive father using forged documents. Within a week, my family's life had imploded completely. Celine was expelled from college after her social media messages were leaked, showing her bragging about abusing me. No other school would accept her with pending assault charges. My mother lost her job when her employer saw the news. Her wine-fueled rants on social media about how I was an ungrateful brat who deserved everything she got didn't help her case. My father was facing 20 years in prison for embezzlement, fraud, and child abuse. His company sued him for the stolen funds. His mistress disappeared the moment his assets were frozen. They lost the house. Turns out it was double mortgaged using my forged signature. The cars were repossessed. Everything they built with stolen money crumbled. At my sister's trial, she tried to claim it was an accident. The prosecutor played a video from her friend's Instagram story, filmed moments after the burning, where Celine was laughing and reenacting how she pressed the iron to my arm while her friends cheered. She got 3 years in prison and a permanent criminal record. My mother's trial was next. Her own wine-fueled texts and emails condemning me as trash and discussing how to drain my trust were her downfall. 2 years in prison and loss of any claim to my biological parents' estate. My father's trial was the grand final. Embezzlement, fraud, child abuse, identity theft. The charges kept mounting. The forensic accountants found he'd stolen not just from my trust and his company, but from my biological parents' estate, using his position as my guardian to secretly sell off assets and pocket the money. 15 years in federal prison. During the trials, the full extent of my biological parents' estate was revealed. After recovering the stolen assets and adding the interest and penalties my adoptive parents owed, it was worth nearly $5 million. All of it went to me on my 18th birthday. I sat in the courtroom as each of them was sentenced, wearing long sleeves to hide the iron burn that had started it all. When they were led away in handcuffs, each of them looked at me with such hatred, such disbelief that the trash had destroyed them. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched them passively as they were taken to begin their sentences. But the real satisfaction came later, when I was setting up my dorm room at Stanford. I decided to study law, inspired by the prosecutors who'd fought for me. On my desk, I placed a small framed photo, not of my adoptive family, but of my biological parents, recovered from the documents my adoptive parents had tried to hide. Next to it, I placed a printed email from the law firm managing my estate. Your trust has been fully restored with interest and penalties. Current value, $5.3 million. And finally, a medical report, healing progress on iron burn, minimal scarring expected with continued treatment. That burn had been meant to mark me as trash, as worthless as less than human. Instead, it became the catalyst for my freedom and their destruction. My roommate noticed the burn scar one day and asked about it. Cooking accident, I said simply, but it taught me something important. What's that? That sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the keys to our liberation. She nodded, not pushing further. That night, I got a call from Jamie, my friend whose family had taken me in during those crucial 2 weeks. Did you see the news? She asked. Your sister got attacked in prison. Apparently, the other inmates don't like child abusers. I hope she's okay, I said, and I meant it. Not because I forgave her, but because I was genuinely free from caring about any of them anymore. You're a better person than me, Jamie said. No, I replied, touching the raised scar on my arm. I'm just someone who learned that the best revenge isn't wishing harm on those who hurt you. It's ensuring they face the consequences of their own actions while you thrive despite them. The scar from the iron never fully faded. It remained as a raised triangular mark on my forearm. Sometimes people asked about it, and I'd give different answers depending on my mood. But I never hid it. It was proof of what I'd survived, evidence of the moment my family revealed exactly who they were, and a reminder that I'd taken their worst and transformed it into my freedom. They called me trash and said I deserved to burn. Instead, I'd risen from those ashes while they burned in the hell of their own making. And I didn't even have to light the match. They'd done that themselves the moment they pressed that iron to my skin.